Hello and welcome to the final part of our lecture on the scientific methods. In this final chapter, we will zoom in very shortly on a very specific, special, and novel, although not really novel, part of the scientific method that is called tenure and is actually focused to what we discussed in the very first slide of the very first part of the lecture, that science is also a professional field and a culture. Now, as professionals and as individuals, you also envision a career path when you start in sciences. You become a student at the very lowest level, the bachelor level. You move over to the master level, PhD, postdoc, hopefully assistant professor, associate professor, and maybe one day a full professor. And it is generally taught that at every step you take on the ladder, you will acquire more knowledge. Now, that is, of course, a bit of a generalization because at every step of the ladder you acquire new knowledge also. So within every step there's also a lot of knowledge to be gained. This can be very broad, very generic, transferable knowledge, but it can also be very field specific knowledge, and it is also very field specific knowledge. And this transgression, this career path in science, also influences the way we do science at an academic level because it influences the way you do science. It influences the goals you set for yourself in science in terms of publications, in terms of acquiring funding, as discussed in the previous part of the lecture. But it also makes you become a more professional scientist. So, what we have at UN and what other universities also have is what we call CPD, or continued professional development. Although when you stop studying after the PhD level, as a postdoc, as an associate professor, but even as a full professor, you keep on developing yourself. This can be as a teacher by following teacher trainings courses, but also by attending conferences, writing papers, being a referee, being an editor. For instance, in my field, the field of biosensing, we try to attend annual conferences, big conferences, international conferences, such as Biocensus 2020, but also nanotechnology conferences, and more broadly, material science conferences. In this way, you acquire knowledge about your field. You become a better professional because you get ideas from other professionals in the field. It allows you to discuss with people you would normally not discuss with, especially if you go to a little bit broader conference such as the MRS, the Materials Research Society conference, where you will not only encounter people working on sensing, but also people working on other forms of material science, or on the nanoscience conferences. You will get together with people actually focused on nanotechnology, not necessarily only sensors. So you will broaden your horizon and you will get new ideas and you will become a better professional because of it. In addition to that, in addition to the academic ladder, uh, science is obviously also a big part of the industry. For instance, this figure shows you what you can do with a biology PhD. And as you see, that not a lot of people that obtain a PhD will end up becoming professors, only a very small fraction. So about 70% does postdoc after their career, but then only 15% of those postdocs will actually get a tenure track position in the faculty within the next 6 years. So that means, like me, an associate and assistant professor position where you get a fixed permanent contract and a chance to build up your own research line, to build up your own career as a lecturer, but also as a researcher. Many other people with a PhD after their masters go into industry. They go into, for instance, for biology PhDs, in non-scientific jobs such as sales manager or general manager, or they do some research jobs in the industry. Some work for the government, some stay in academia but end up in non-tenure track academic positions. Can even be in science, but it can also be a lecturing position, or it can be a research assistant position. So most people will actually not end up in academic science, but will do some other job that is associated or is not associated with science, but it also influences the different ways that scientists do science, and therefore science is not only, despite we have the scientific method that characterizes some of the key characteristics that most scientists share, there's also a lot of difference. So the scientific method is more of an imaginary theoretical concept that is used to distinguish the critical manner at like the manner at which scientists look at knowledge generation and the skeptic nature of creating new knowledge. But in reality, there's a lot of difference between how different people, different individuals within the scientific community approach science and therefore also approach the scientific method. So this was our lecture on the scientific method. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me through email or by phone, or if COVID allows it, you can also approach me at the faculty. Have a nice afternoon. Hopefully you enjoyed the tutorials, and we'll see each other later. Thank you for your attention.